Welcome to the New Normal Show. I am your host, Ace, and I am ecstatic, excited, exuberant, exhilarating. I don't even know if that was the right way to use the word, but I feel so good with this message, this topic, this episode that I'm going to bring to you today. And we're talking about happiness, man, the pursuit of happiness. Is it something that you could pursue? Is it something that you can create? Is it something that you can just say and declare right now, I choose to be happy? We're going to get into my thoughts, my experiences, and I'm going to give you 5 things that I like to call my starting 5, right? So I have a basketball background, so this makes sense to me. But essentially what the starting 5 is, it's 5 things that I believe if you tackle these 5 things every single day for the most part of your week, your month, your year, you're going to have a pretty good and happy life. But before we get into that, I want to say thank you to everyone for your support of the transition and transformation of the podcast. For those of you that do not know, if this is your first time listening, welcome. All are welcome. And before we were the New Normal Show, we were once called the Third Quarter Podcast, and we are a few episodes into this transition. So I want to say thank you for all of those that have stayed and everyone that is new. If you find value in this podcast, one way that really helps us get to people that need our message, that would love what we have to say, is by you subscribing to the podcast, number one, leaving a 5-star review, but also leaving a kind review with your words. It doesn't have to be crazy long, but just letting Spotify and Apple or whatever you get your podcast know that this is a podcast that I find valuable. It's entertaining, it's informative, and I believe that other people are going to find it useful like I do. We greatly appreciate it, and I want to say thank you in advance for your support. Thank you in advance for your future support. And by sharing this podcast on your social media, that helps us too. Right now, we are purely audio, but in the very near future, we are going to be in a studio. But for right now, it's all audio. So the more that you share it, the better. And I want to say thank you for that. So let's get into the episode. Happiness. Can you create it? Is it something that you have to pursue? Is it something that only a select few get it? Is it based on how you're raised? Is it based on your environment? Is it based on other factors that are beyond your control? What is it? I believe personally, I just want to start off by saying, I believe everybody is entitled to happiness. As a God-fearing man, I don't believe in my heart of hearts that God would not create you to be here to be miserable. Now, I'm not saying that we all are born perfect. That would be crazy. We all have our own challenges. Some of us are born in circumstances that are just unbelievably painful and unbelievably unbearable. But even the ones, and maybe you're one of the ones that's listening to this, and you come from a place of just pure hate, of pain, of abuse, whatever the case is. Number one, I'm sorry for that, and I'm praying for you. But even you deserve to be happy, and even you can create happiness in your life. So I guess I just gave away my answer. I do believe that happiness is something that you can have, but I do believe it's something that we are supposed to create. And I don't know if it's in like the Declaration of Independence. I believe it is, but it says life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, many of us have seen the movie The Pursuit of Happiness by the great Will Smith. And in that movie, the older that I get, when that movie came out, I was a sophomore in college, I believe. It was like 2006. I was a sophomore in college, and I remember seeing that movie by myself after a long road trip for a basketball game. And I remember going to that movie by myself in Midland, Michigan, and I was sitting next to 2 elderly white women. And I remember, spoiler alert, but it got to the part where towards the end where they were in the church and Will picks up his son, played by his actual son, Jaden Smith, and he's just hugging him. And from that point on, it was like a weep fest, because this entire movie, you're watching this man just go from getting knocked down, to getting stomped out, to getting kicked in the face by his wife, through life, through all of these situations and scenarios where you just it keeps getting worse. And at the very, very end, the last 5 minutes, he has his comeuppance, and it ends on a very, very happy note. But as I've gotten older now, being 37 and watching that movie really is about a father and son and overcoming adversity. But what it really is about is how much and to what extent are you willing to go through for happiness, not just for you, but for the people that you love? To what extent are you willing to do whatever it takes for you to pursue the happiness as you define it that you desire for your life? And I look back at my life. I look back at the times where I was in my darkest, deepest depression, like in 2013 when I was on medication and having panic attacks and just really at my wit's end when it comes to, personal disappointment and being uncertain on who I am and my identity. And basketball didn't turn out the way I wanted to. And I started acting and modeling. I started doing all these different things. And I was harboring all these emotions that I had as a child that I never addressed. And everything was coming full steam ahead. And when I look at that time, when I look at, last year being in the worst shape of my life, being 270 pounds and being in the worst shape physically, mentally, emotionally, just not being me. And it's hard. It's hard when everything that you're seeing or everything that you're perceiving in your mind is like another just kick in the ass. It's like everywhere you turn, it seems like it gets worse and worse and worse. And no matter what you do, no matter how hard you try, it doesn't seem to get any better. That's when I learn to surrender and give those things that I cannot control or the things that I'm needing great breakthrough in, and I give it to God. And I allow him to do the things that only he can do. But also it allows me more strength and more energy to focus on the things that I can control and the things that I can do for myself. Because if happiness truly is a pursuit, then it's going to require me to put that into motion and take action with that. But if I'm drained and weighed down by everything that I'm going through in my life, I don't have the energy to do that. So I can understand when someone feels like there's no way out, or for someone that feels like they cannot breathe, because not only are they dealing with things that they can control, they're trying to handle everything that they cannot. And I really do believe that everyone that is listening to this, that is going to listen to this, you can pursue and can get happy. Now, I will say this. Happiness is also an emotion. So let's also say that. What do I mean by that? It is a feeling that flees. It is something that comes and eventually it will go. And happiness is not something that is sustainable every single day. That's why I think the word pursuit is very interesting, because it's a constant search. It's a constant journey for happiness, right? I think what we all are looking for, whether we are saying it subconsciously or not, is we say the word happiness a lot, but I think what we're really looking for is this word called fulfillment. We're looking for peace, where no matter what's going on in our life, we have a sense of certainty in who we are and our abilities and our future, that even if we're happy or not, we're not really wavered. Does that make sense? So do I believe everyone can become happy? Yes. Do I think happiness is the end goal? No. I think it's fulfillment, and I think it's peace. I think along the way, you can get happy, but you can also get sad. You can get disappointed. You can get frustrated. You can get angry. Like all these other emotions come into play as a human being. The key is, what are you going to give attention to the most? Because what I have found is when I am happy, I perceive things through the lens of happiness. But what I have also found is when I was angry, I perceived things through the lens of being angry. So really the silver lining of everything is, how do I continue to stay positive? How do I continue to be solid? How do I continue to have a firm foundation, whether I'm in a state of happiness or I'm in a state of sadness or anger or disappointment? And what I have for you today is what I like to call my starting five. Okay. I have a basketball background, and this makes sense in my mind, right? And I know everyone likes numbers, so I think like the more we have numbers, the more it makes sense, okay? So basically, in basketball, you have your starting five, which means these are the best five players, more or less, that are going to start the game. So when the game starts, I'm putting my starting five out there. I'm putting my best five players on the court to start the game. And in this case, the starting five represents, these are the five things that if I do these things more or less every single day, I'm pretty much going to guarantee I'm going to have more good days than not. And it's not about being happy. It's not about being sad. It's about being even keel. That if I do these five things, I'm going to be solid. I am going to control the controllables. And I'm going to learn to surrender the things that I cannot control, right? And so I want to give you these five things, these starting five, and your answer for these five may be different. I'm going to give you what I do in these five categories, but by and large, there are five categories that you are going to have to focus on every single day. Now, some of you may be saying, Ace, 5 things is a lot. Yes and no, because really, if I'm thinking about the time that I spend doing these things, it really probably all adds up to like maybe an hour and a half max. You could do all 5 things in like 30 minutes if you really wanted to, but you may have more time. You can spend more time. You may have less time. You need less time. But if you have at least 15 to 30 minutes a day, which we all have, you can knock out all 5 of these things, okay? So here is the starting 5, or are the starting 5, grammar police, that I believe if you tackle these things every single day, you're going to be good. And number 1 is the body. Number 2 is the mind. Number 3 is your spirit. Number 4 is 2 things in one. It's giving and community. And the 5th one is your courage. Okay? So we have body, mind, spirit, giving, community, and courage. And I'm going to share with you what I do, or some of the things I do for each category, so I can give you an idea of what to do every single day. So when it comes to the body, this is kind of self-explanatory. This is movement. Okay? This is movement. So this can be a walk. This could be, exercise in some type of a way, going to the gym, yoga, some type of physical activity every single day. So every single day, I make a promise to myself that I'm going to be active in some kind of a way. Okay? It doesn't mean you have to lift weights every single day. It doesn't mean you have to do this type of activity every single day. It means you have to do a activity every single day. Okay? I truly believe the more that you prioritize your physical body and the more that you put into using your body and exercising and getting healthier in that way, it opens up everything else. Okay? So for me, it's a guarantee pretty much that I'm going to be walking every single day. It's a guarantee. Whether I'm walking outside or I'm going to be walking on the treadmill, I'm walking every day 9 times out of 10. I'm in the gym a minimum 4 times a week. I'm doing some type of activity outside. It's a guaranteed. And last year, I was 270 pounds, and at the time of this recording, I'm about 198 pounds. And literally, the journey of my transformation started with me just walking. I wasn't even lifting weights yet. I was just walking. So the first of the starting 5 is the body. So I want you to think about what is an activity that you can do every single day, no matter what. And I want you to look at it from this perspective, okay? I want you to look at all 5 of these things from this perspective. If today was the absolute worst day of my life, how can I simplify this to still do these 5 things every single day? Because if you can find a way to do all 5 of these on your worst day, odds are you're not going to experience that day every single day. So there is no excuse not to get these things done. Capiche? So the second thing is the mind. How do you strengthen the mind? So for me, I'm either listening to an audiobook, I'm journaling, I'm listening to a podcast, I'm doing something where I'm gaining new information, either on something that I do not know, or I'm learning about something that I want to develop a better skill at, okay? So when it comes to the mind, it's strengthening the mind. How can you not just get smarter, right, but get more intelligent? How can you get more efficient? How can you learn how to speed the process of what it is you're trying to do? So again, I'm listening to an audiobook. I'm going to be honest, I'm more of an audiobook listener than actual physical reader. For some reason, I retain way more information through audio than I do reading. But if you want to read, go do your thing. So that's what I do, okay? Maybe yours is reading. Maybe yours is listening to a podcast. Maybe it's watching a documentary. Maybe it's having an intelligent conversation with someone. Maybe it's whatever the hell it is. It's something where mentally you're getting stimulated every single day and you're keeping that brain sharp, okay? We got to make sure that we are keeping our brain sharp. So that's number 2 is the mind. Number 3, which is the most important in my opinion, this is the spirit, okay? For me, non-negotiable is prayer. I'm praying every single day, sometimes multiple times a day. I'm meditating. If I'm being honest, I'm getting back into the word. I've kind of been inconsistent with my Bible reading, but I'm getting back into that. So that is something for the spirit, okay? So I want you to do something every single day that's strengthening your spirit. It could be prayer. It could be meditating. It could be reading. Whatever it is that you do that is going to enlighten the highest version of yourself, that's going to connect you closer to God, that is what I want you to do, okay? So the first thing is the body. The second is the mind. Third is the spirit, okay? The fourth thing is a combination. It's giving and it's community. So with this one, this is about doing something every single day that's either for someone else or you're interacting in community, okay? Now, this is when you're meeting someone for coffee, you're having a phone call. This is not a text. This is a phone call check-in. You're calling a family member, you're calling a friend that you haven't talked to in a long time, or maybe you text someone all the time and you said, you know what, I want to talk to you on the phone for like 5 to 10 minutes. I just want to hear your voice, Or you're doing something for a stranger. You're paying for someone's dinner. You're paying for someone's coffee. You're giving something away. You're giving to someone. So you're doing some type of act of giving or you're immersing yourself in community. Now, it doesn't have to be with 5, 10, 15 people. It literally can be, like I said a second ago, a phone call conversation. But you want to make sure that you're not under the idea that you have to do this alone. And one of the things I know I struggled with when I was really battling, my anxiety and my depression is you tend to isolate yourself. And from a spiritual perspective, that's what the enemy wants. He wants you to isolate yourself and to back yourself into a corner because that's when you are the most vulnerable for attack. So when you're living for someone else in your giving, and when you're living with other people in community, you are no longer putting yourself in isolation, right? So it makes it harder for you to be attacked when you have a spirit of giving and when you're in community. Okay. So the fourth thing is giving and community. And the last one is your courage. Now, this is all about doing something every single day that you really do not want to do, or something that is very uncomfortable for you. This does not have to be anything crazy. I'm not expecting you to skydive tomorrow or to climb Mount Everest. If you do, don't say that it was because of me. I don't want to hear it. If something goes wrong, heaven forbid, I don't want your family to come after me. What I do with this is as simple as a cold shower, a cold plunge, walking outside in the cold, doing something that's uncomfortable, a 24-hour fast, doing something that you normally would not do, that your body is like, why are you doing this? Your mind is like, why are you doing this? And you're forcing yourself to do something that habitually you don't do. And it's also something that no matter how often you do it, it's still uncomfortable. And that's a cold shower for me. I do a cold shower pretty much every single morning for like 5 minutes. Some days I don't do it, or some days I'll do it shorter, but I'm going to find my way in some cold water, because if I start my day doing something that I really don't want to do, it kind of mentally gives you an advantage for the rest of your day, because you're starting yourself off with something that's uncomfortable, right? Maybe for you, it's getting out of bed at the drop of a dime when your alarm goes off. Maybe it's setting your alarm 30 minutes early. Maybe it's going to bed 30 minutes early. Maybe it's fasting for 24 hours. Maybe it's you're not eating fast food. Whatever the case is for you, you're doing something that is going to strengthen your courage. Maybe it's taking a public speaking class. Maybe it's taking a dance class. Maybe it's doing something where you're getting outside of your comfort zone. It's doing a poetry jam session. I don't know. Only you know what makes you uncomfortable. And you know what it is because you're thinking about it and you're already nervous. You're already nervous. Again, it doesn't have to be something so traumatic, but it does have to be something that is challenging and uncomfortable, because the cool part about that is the more that you learn to get comfortable in the discomfort, the easier it becomes over time to take on more challenging tasks, because you have a reference point that you're willing to do things that you normally don't do, right? And when your mind sees you consistent in discomfort, when you say that you're going to do something that's even more uncomfortable than that, even though, yeah, you are afraid a little, your brain has a reference point to be like, well, every time that he says this or every time she says this, she follows through. He follows through. So we're going to be good and we're going to be protected because he's a man of his word and she's a woman of her word. So doing something for your courage every single day is going to do wonders for your fulfillment and your peace and your happiness. And I believe that if you do these 5 things every single day, something for your body, something for your mind, your spirit, giving, community, and courage, I mean, you're kind of setting yourself up for bulletproof confidence, bulletproof happiness. And that doesn't mean stuff isn't going to happen. That doesn't mean that you're not going to go through a tough time. But what it does mean is that you have so much ammunition in your tool belt. It's like Batman. Like Batman wasn't necessarily a superhero. I mean, he was a superhero, but he didn't have any powers. He had a utility belt. And what the utility belt was, it was his answer for problems that were outside of his physical ability. So whenever he was facing some type of a villain that had a power or an ability that was more powerful than his own, he had an answer for that. Does that make sense? So you doing these 5 things is putting things in your utility belt that when the old you would go through something hard and you would just be done for the day, you have a solution for that problem. You have a solution for that challenge, because you're making a decision that you're going to take your happiness back. You're going to take your peace back. You're going to take your fulfillment back, and you're going to have a much, much sweeter, grand, vivacious life when you know that if you hit these 5 things, you're good. And it may not seem like that at the beginning, but I promise you, over time, the compound interest of you doing this is going to pay dividends in the future. Okay? So these are your starting fives. And I'm going to be very, very curious to see and hear the feedback of you guys implementing this. And please reach out on social media and let us know how it's going. I'll be very curious to see, because I'm telling you what, it's done wonders for me. And it's not even just me losing 70 pounds in a year, but my peace, my calmness, my relaxation, like my fun and like everything has done a complete, 180. And it's because of these starting 5 things that I tackle every single day. All right. I hope this episode blessed you. If it did, please share it with someone that you know, like, and love. You never know who may need this when they get it. I love you so much. Be safe, be blessed. And thank you for listening to the New Normal Show.